from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up today on Ag Day, Team Trump heads to Capitol Hill to defend his budget.
What we did here is try and change the way that Washington looks at spending.
The level of cuts to investments that Americans need is astonishing and frankly immoral.
Digging into dairy from the Indy 500, plus marketing strategies if you're holding on to old crop corn.
Either you've sold a lot and you're in good shape and you're saying, what's the big deal?
The Drovers team is charting cattle markets and fall expectations, and could this be the link to better learning? A program from Missouri.
Ag Day, brought to you by the dependable, longest-lasting Chevy Silverado.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue goes before the congressional panel that controls the purse strings, trying to explain the president's proposed budget and the cuts that could impact agriculture. Perdue, along with USDA Chief Economist Robert Johansson and USDA Budget Director Michael Young, testifying to members of the House Appropriations Committee. This hearing comes a day after the White House released its proposed $4 trillion budget. A budget aimed at cutting federal spending. Now it cuts $231 billion from mandatory farm bill spending over the next 10 years.
I think the 14 Farm Bill was very wise in its construct of moving away from the direct payments into a ARC and PLC type program, aside with crop insurance, giving much of the responsibility of providing for that safety net to the farmers themselves.
The Trump administration wants to reduce spending on the farm safety net, government food programs, rural development, and foreign market promotion. Now, those cuts can only happen by rewriting the Farm Bill. Proposed cuts to food programs like SNAP drew heavy criticism from Democratic lawmakers representing urban districts.
My hope is that this budget document is dead on arrival because I believe it cruel, I believe it heartless, and I believe it inhumane.
And as you correctly pointed out, Mr. Secretary, one of the main purposes of the food stamps is when unemployment goes high. Well, unemployment's back down. The food stamp program isn't. So I'm glad the administration is restoring sanity to that program.
President Trump's budget chief is defending the president's plan to cut social programs as a means to increase economic growth. Budget Director Mick Mulvaney told the House Budget Committee that he went line by line through the federal budget and asked, can we justify this to the folks who are actually paying for it? But Democrats told Mulvaney that cuts to food stamps, payments to the disabled, and other programs are, quoting now, astonishing and frankly immoral.
This budget starts by taking away health care, then food, then housing, then education, then job opportunities. For nearly every American family struggling to get ahead, this budget makes that much harder, if not impossible.
For the first time ever, President Trump, the first president of either party, is proposing a national paid parental leave program. We have $20 billion in this budget to do that. We don't touch Social Security and Medicare, following through on his campaign promises. And we're able to do all of that and still balance.
Meanwhile, uncertainty in Washington sending the dollar on a week of shaky trades. However, the currency finding footing on Wednesday as the Federal Reserve released meeting notes signaling a rate hike is likely in June. But it's a weaker U.S. dollar offering dairy farmers a favor as it makes U.S. milk more attractive on the world market. Tyne Morgan joining us now from the Indianapolis 500 track as drivers are preparing for race weekend, where the winning driver will receive a quenching glass of milk. Tyne?
Here now with Mike North of Commodity Risk Management Group, and we're here in the winner's circle at the Indy 500 Speedway. Each year the winners drink milk, and so that's going to be the topic of our conversation for today's marketing discussion. I mean, Mike, when we look at this milk supply, it just continues to get bigger.
It does. It almost is on a race of its own, and the reality is that this market is not seeing any end in sight. The reality for us is we haven't gone low enough to take profitability down far enough to disincentivize the dairymen from keeping cows and adding cows to the herd. So cow numbers continue to grow. There's ample feed supply. We have great managers. Our productivity continues to rise. Big supplies looming, and that will hang over our head all through the course of the summer.
But, Mike, we have seen impressive exports. I mean, but it's not been enough to help offset the increase in supply?
It hasn't of yet. However, as we look forward, perhaps this changing value of the U.S. dollar opens some doors. But if you look at the last cold storage report, we had butter inventories rising, albeit not as large as they could have. We had cheddar explode, and so American cheese inventories are very large, and that's going to be a problem for us as we go forward. We really need the exports to help offset some of this increase in growth domestically.
So then what's your outlook on prices for the rest of 2017?
Well, much like 2016, I see some volatility ahead for us. I see some possibilities for prices to maybe move up into that $18 to $19 territory. But at the same time, with these large domestic inventories, we have that risk of returning back to values of $13 and $14.
So how do you manage that risk?
I honestly like option strategies the best right here. We've got a $17 because you have the flexibility. You can manage downside risk while maintaining enough nimbleness in the market to experience topside if it comes. That's why I like the option strategies here. I think there's some great affordability and some spreads and possibilities for guys to lock in profitability, extend that if it goes up, and protect themselves from the downside.
Because we've seen some of these cattle producers, as these prices have continued to go up, they've lost out. They've missed out on that opportunity. So you're saying don't get caught in that same situation?
And that's exactly why we like options. The livestock market is a great case study in why you want to keep some topside nimbleness here.
All right, thanks, Mike.
All right, thanks, Tyne. And Mike, make sure to tune in to Ag Day tomorrow morning. Betsy Gibbon takes us to the farm of the 2017 Indy 500 Milkman, who has a big job this weekend, rewarding the winning driver with a cold glass of milk. We'll introduce you to the man behind the milk tomorrow on Ag Day. Mike Hoffman joins us now to look at field conditions across the country. He has today's crop comments. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Clinton. We continue to hear about flooded fields and replanting all over the Corn Belt, but there are some good pockets too. Dick Overby sent us this photo from his fields in Minnesota. He says it's a great stand of corn so far, but they could sure use some sun at this point. According to the latest USDA numbers, his state is 94% planted, 8 points ahead of the 5-year average. And Rafe Banks sent us these photos from Clarkdale, Arkansas. He says crop conditions are actually good in Crittenden County, and he knows they're a little bit lucky. Just to the north of them is where all the flooding was a few weeks back. He says cotton and soybeans look good, but they could actually use rain to activate some of the herbicides that they have down. And taking a look at the weather map, you can see that slow-moving storm system in the Ohio Valley. That is going to start to move pretty quickly, and a couple of systems out west. We'll track those for you coming up, but first, here are some hometown temps.
Be prepared for work each day, rain or shine, by signing up for local weather forecast updates delivered straight to your cell phone. Just text Weather 6 to 31313 to get started.
All right, when we come back, Bob Utterback will be here with tips for marketing that old crop corn still sitting in the bin. And later, take a seat for learning. These kids are staying late for a little extra education. We'll travel to the Show Me State today on In the Country.
Fast pace with design-matched transmissions for intuitive steering. Perfect cut for a carpet-like finish. And sweet ride with a comfort-focused seat. Grasshopper mowers are committed to the cut.
Agribusiness, it seemed to be a pretty uneventful day in markets. Well, let's see how things stand on the floor of the CME.
Wednesday's grains, well, we see markets that are very much right around the center line. And of course, why? Well, A, it's been extremely quiet anyways. And of course, we've got the holiday weekend coming up. You've got maybe weather, maybe not weather. There's a whole bunch of things going on. But I think at the end of the day, what we're really seeing is the grains are holding exactly where they should be holding. As we take a look at cattle has continued to do as we suspected. It is selling off. Now, again, it was much lower and had a little bit of a rally back in. But we still look for pretty much lower prices. I think if you look at the bigger picture, probably another 4 to 5% on the downside. We would target somewhere in the 130s to high 120s in the feeders. We're looking for the 114, 115 in the fat cattle. Hogs remain stubbornly higher here, and now we're at the 80 level again. I look for hogs to fall back. I'm looking for 72 before I'm looking to be a buyer here. That's the way I see it. This is Todd Horwitz coming from the floor of the CME Group in Chicago. Bob Utterback with Utterback Marketing, our guest here at the Agribusiness Desk today. Bob, let's talk about maybe some of
the crop we still have in bins? Because there's a bit of it out there as well. How do we make decisions over the next 5 weeks to 2 months?
I think we have a situation in corn. Either you've sold a lot and you're in good shape and you're saying, what's the big deal? Prices should go higher. Or you haven't got hardly anything sold. And I think there's, in the corn market, there's an unhealthy amount of old crop corn in the bin waiting to be sold on a summer bounce, or they've delivered the corn and taken basis contracts.
Okay.
So they're long the market. So you almost got to separate those two issues. If you have corn in the bin and you're going to have to sell cash flow over the next 2 months, if the board rallies, basis is going to widen. So right now, on these low prices, I would argue if you know you're going to move, I would rather price out the basis and move the product and put it on a paper position and be long the paper, have the emotional anxiety, the frustration.
Sure.
But you know you'll lose less money on that paper position than you will in that grain bin. So I want you to move the product and have it done.
Yeah, get it off the books.
But
off
if
the
you
farm.
can't move, if you can't go to the paper because I just can't do it, I think you at least got to be on your basis exposure. Get your basis locked in, because when the market rallies, I think basis will widen and your net will not be that much better off. The best way is get a basis locked in and lock in the board price. I'd say between the 3rd week of June through the 2nd week of July, that's your time window. If you can't get the corn to do something by then, you're not doing it. Now, we know beans is going to go late July into mid-August. And so the beans is actually more dangerous because we got the more acres planted, and we're in a building stock situation. We're thinking China is going to be the offset, but the beans, I think, are more negative this year. Corn's the more positive. I got my feed needs bought. I'm doing my re-ownership. I'm hoping corn rallies the next 4 to 5 weeks, but then mentally I want to be ready to sell it for the 17 crop I'm producing right now. I want to late June, early July. I want to get some pricing done.
All right. There's some strategies there. Tools for the toolbox. Appreciate it, Bob. We'll be back with more Ag Day in just a minute.
To talk with Bob one-on-one, call Utterback Marketing Services, toll free at 800-832-1488. Get the roots your crops need by getting Radiate first. Visit lovelandproducts.com/radiate. See your CPS dealer today.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman. Mike, looking at this system out in the east, it looks like it's putting down a fair amount of rain.
Yeah, it has. It is going to start moving more quickly, though, which will help folks as they see the rain farther east and some storm systems out west. Not a lot of moisture actually with those systems out there, but this one has put down a lot of rain already. You can see, though, it is finally moving off to the east. It's been sitting there for a couple of days, but showers and thunder showers from the mid-Atlantic on up through the eastern Great Lakes and New England. A few thunderstorms then in central and south Florida moving away. At least a lot of the drought areas down in the far southeast did get some rain out of this system as it moves away. High pressure then dominating the Mississippi Valley later on today, keeping it dry. Next system, like I said, doesn't have a lot of moisture with it and doesn't look like it picks much up for a while. There's tomorrow morning just a few spotty showers in the northern plains with that system. And the one in Nevada and California really just not putting down any rain at all. Heading through the day tomorrow then, we'll see that eastern system finally start to exit. You'll still get rain most of the day, though, in Maine, but it'll be ending more quickly farther west. Some showers developing along this cold front then, but you can see they're kind of scattered and generally on the light side. From Missouri on northward up into the western Great Lakes, and a little bit more activity developing over the Rockies with that secondary system. Precipitation estimates over the past 24 hours. You can see some of those heavier amounts in the southeast, especially southeast Georgia, southern South Carolina, and into parts of Florida. Adding in the next 36 hours, most of it's going to be added farther north from the mid-Atlantic into New England. A little bit more will be added in southern Florida, and you can see some light scattered amounts farther west. Snowfall estimates, it's all in the central and northern Rockies and all in the highest elevations, excuse me, may get a few inches of snow, but that would be the highest spots. Look at the heat starting to build in Texas today. Some 90s showing up in western Texas, still 60s for the eastern Corn Belt. As we head through tonight, then we'll see things cool down, but not substantially. You're still talking 40s, 50s, and 60s across the plains into the northeast, so nothing too much to worry about as far as freeze is concerned. And tomorrow afternoon, the 90s shift eastward toward Dallas in that area, and boy, the 70s start to expand northward into the central Mississippi Valley, parts of the Ohio Valley as well. There's the jet stream. There's that cutoff low that's finally going to move away. Secondary one Well, guess where it moves? It drops right into the Great Lakes as we head into Memorial Day and the first part of next week, bringing some more rain and then cooler temperatures. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. We head to Laramie, Wyoming. First of all, partly sunny and cool. Shower or thunderstorm possible, high of 57. Evansville, Indiana, partly sunny and warm, maybe a shower, high of 75. And Concord, New Hampshire, cooler and becoming rainy, high of 61.
When could cattle markets cool off? The team over at Drovers takes a shot at the answer right after the break. And pushing education to new heights. See how this after-school program in Missouri is helping kids succeed today on In the Country. On Drovers TV, it's been a historic rally for spring cattle prices. Cash cattle climbing $20 in a 4-week span, and much of it due to shorter supplies. Carcass weights are down 30 pounds compared to a year ago. Analysts tell Drovers it will likely be third or the fourth quarter before that trend starts moving the other direction. Meanwhile, consumer demand remaining strong as grilling season gets started, and in strong export demand with March volumes up 25%, the largest one-month total since 1974, and the fundamentals back these climbing prices.
Despite the strong demand and tighter supplies, cattle markets should expect a seasonal decline from the spring highs to the summer lows, maybe as much as 10 to 15%. The key to this summer's cash cattle prices will be how strong retailers feature beef in light of the higher wholesale prices they paid for beef. Retail beef margins have declined, and so will retailers' willingness to feature beef over pork and poultry.
Henderson says market analysts will be watching Memorial Day weekend beef sales for indications of consumer demand and where cattle markets could be headed this summer. Meanwhile, the latest profit tracker from Sterling Marketing showing feeder profits holding steady at $462 per head, down about $75 since last week. The 5-area cash price dipped a couple of bucks to $134. Packers also in the black last week, seeing profits of nearly $200 a head. Now, declining cash cattle and increasing beef cutout prices really pushing those packer margins higher. Profit margins for cow-calf producers in 2017 expected to average $107 per cow. Bloomberg reporting that the explosion in farm-to-fork restaurants is putting pressure on supplies, mostly due to the small number of processors able to do custom slaughter. For example, volume sales of free-range meat up nearly 27% in 2016, and according to USDA, in 1967, there were roughly 9,600 processors able to do that work. Changes in the law to require inspections for sales across state lines meant that by 2016, there were only 1,100 able to ship nationwide. Still to come, school's over, but these Missouri kids are still learning. We'll tell you why coming up.
In the Country, brought to you by Kubota. Learn more about Kubota SSV Series skid steers at Kubota.com or demo one at your local Kubota dealer today.
Thousands of elementary students and parents are enjoying the benefits of a popular before and after school program in Kansas City. John Lamb from the University of Missouri has more.
School ended hours ago, but these kids at Johnson Elementary in Kansas City are still in the classroom learning. The local investment commission, also known as Link Caring Communities, offers the before and after school program to K through 8th grade students to further explore STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. This approach reinforces concepts taught during the regular school day.
The evidence is there, so as we look at a standardized test, and I'm going to say particularly around science, we can see that students are becoming more and more skilled, and it really sort of builds the foundation that they'll need for middle school and high school and perhaps employment.
Link partners with MU Extension's 4-H, which provides the STEM curriculum and staff for the program that benefits more than 2,000 kids annually in 17 schools in the Kansas City area. Link site coordinator Denisha Clarkson emphasizes the appeal of this educational experience to kids.
What some of the programs, for example, the robotics does, is it gives the child that quiet, intimate atmosphere to focus.
Camera ready? Ready. Scene one, take two.
The before and after school program sparks student curiosity and encourages them to develop skills that lead to future opportunities.
In every single one of our programs, we talk about career development. We talk about what it takes to do something as a professional. We talk about the multiple different job opportunities that come with things that the kids might be interested in.
I like the school because in my old school I never had these programs.
From the University of Missouri, I'm John Lamb.
Thanks, John, and that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. Start your day with us. For Mike Hoffman, Tyne Morgan, and all of us here at Ag Day, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.
Ag Day is powered by Ram Trucks, America's longest-lasting pickups.